My mother-in-law, Patricia, was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 5 years before I married her son, and she weaponized it into the suffering Olympics, where she always won gold. I should have seen the warning signs during our first dinner together. Mark had just introduced me as his girlfriend, and I mentioned needing to step away to test my blood sugar. Patricia's eyes lit up with an almost predatory gleam. "Oh, you're diabetic too?" she said, but her tone suggested she'd just caught me in a lie. "Type 2, I assume? It's so common these days with all the processed food young people eat." "Actually, type 1, I replied, pulling out my glucose meter diagnosed when I was 12. Her smile tightened. "How convenient. Well, I've had type 2 for 5 years now. The real kind that comes from genetics, not autoimmune dramatics." Mark shot me an apologetic look, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was just having a bad day. How naive I was. Over the following months, Patricia transformed my medical condition into a competition I never wanted to enter. When I'd check my blood sugar before meals, she'd loudly declare, "I never need to check that often, and I'm actually diabetic." She'd monitor my insulin doses at dinner, announcing to everyone, "That's more than you need. I'm much sicker, and I take less." The family gatherings became minefields. She'd bring sugar-free desserts for the diabetics, but I caught her more than once adding real sugar to mine while keeping hers truly sugar-free. "You young people are so paranoid," she'd say if I questioned it. "A little sugar won't kill you. I eat it all the time." When I was diagnosed with diabetic retinopathy and needed laser treatment, Patricia suddenly developed severe eye problems that mysteriously never required medical intervention. When I mentioned neuropathy in my feet, she claimed hers was so bad, she could barely walk, though she had no trouble racing to be first in line at buffets. But it wasn't just competition, it was sabotage. She started hiding my supplies when she visited. I'd find my insulin tucked behind expired condiments in her fridge, my test strips in her bathroom drawers. "You leave them lying around," she'd say. "Young people need to learn responsibility." The gaslighting was relentless. She told relatives I was copying her for attention, that I'd given myself diabetes on purpose out of jealousy for the care she received. At my own engagement party, I overheard her telling Mark's aunt, "It's suspicious, isn't it? She was perfectly healthy until she found out I was diabetic. Now suddenly she needs all this medical attention." Mark, caught between us, tried to stay neutral, which meant he often defaulted to believing his mother. "Maybe you are checking your blood sugar too often," he'd suggest gently. "Mom's had this longer. Maybe she knows some shortcuts." When I showed him my medical records, prescription history dating back 15 years, he'd nod but then add, "I'm not saying you're not diabetic. Just maybe. Maybe you don't need to make such a big deal about it." The wedding planning was a nightmare. Patricia insisted on choosing the menu since she knew what diabetics could eat. She ordered a cake made with diabetic-friendly sweeteners that turned out to be loaded with honey and agave. "Natural sugars are fine," she proclaimed. When I tried to explain that all sugars affect blood glucose, she told the baker I was one of those dramatic types who likes to complain. I should have run. Every friend, every family member who truly knew me said the same thing. But I loved Mark, and I kept thinking Patricia would eventually accept reality. I thought once she saw how serious my condition was, she'd stop treating it like a performance. I was wrong. The wedding day itself was when she escalated from competitor to saboteur. During the reception, I felt my blood sugar dropping rapidly. I reached for my emergency glucose tablets, only to find my purse empty. Patricia appeared at my elbow, concerned and motherly in front of the guests. "Looking for these?" she whispered, patting her pocket. "You really should keep better track of your supplies. Here, have some of my sugar-free candy instead. It's what I use." I barely made it through the father-daughter dance before my vision started blurring. My maid of honor, a nurse, recognized the signs and slipped me regular soda while Patricia held court, telling anyone who'd listen about how some people can't handle their diabetes with grace. After the wedding, things deteriorated further. Patricia would visit for days at a time, and my diabetes management would mysteriously worsen. My insulin seemed less effective. My glucose meter gave inconsistent readings. I'd wake up with dangerous lows or unexplained highs. She'd swap my glucose tablets with sugar-free candy, then watch me struggle through hypoglycemia, actually timing how long before I gave up the act. During one particularly bad episode, she sat calmly doing her crossword while I crawled to the kitchen, shaking and disoriented, searching for juice. "Such theatrics," she murmured, not looking up. "I've never needed to crawl anywhere." The worst incident happened 6 months into our marriage. My blood sugar had been stable for weeks, and I'd foolishly relaxed my vigilance around Patricia. She noticed immediately. "Funny how you're suddenly cured when no one's paying attention," she said during Sunday dinner. That night, I went into diabetic ketoacidosis. My blood sugar skyrocketed over 500 and nothing brought it down. I took correction dose after correction dose, but it was like injecting water. Because it was water. At the hospital, as I lay there with IVs in both arms, Patricia performed beautifully. She cried to the nurses about how worried she was, how I'd been struggling with my diabetes management. She posted on Facebook about praying for my daughter-in-law while simultaneously sharing articles about Munchausen syndrome in young women. "I've never been hospitalized for my diabetes," she told Mark sadly. "I just don't understand why she can't manage hers properly." The ER doctor was puzzled by my insulin's ineffectiveness, but without proof, what could I say? That my mother-in-law had switched my life-saving medication with water? I'd sound delusional. Patricia had counted on that. When I tried to explain my suspicions to Mark, he looked exhausted. "Mom was here all day, crying. She feels terrible that you're sick. Can't you see she cares?" But I saw the truth in Patricia's eyes when no one else was looking, satisfaction. She'd rather see me in a coma than admit I had a real disease that was more serious than hers. That's when I decided to stop playing defense. If Patricia needed to be the sickest person in the room, if she needed me to be fake, I'd give her the performance of a lifetime. But this time, I'd be the director. I started small. First, I installed hidden cameras throughout her house, perfectly legal in my own home. Then I bought duplicate medical supplies. Identical insulin vials, some filled with harmless saline, marked invisibly with UV ink. I set up a continuous glucose monitor that uploaded to the cloud, creating an indisputable medical record. I began leaving my supplies carelessly around when Patricia visited. She couldn't resist. I watched her on camera, swapping my vials with practiced ease, that satisfied smirk as she helped organize my medication. But now she was swapping saline for saline. For 3 months, I documented everything. Every swap, every instance of sabotage, every cruel comment when she thought we were alone. I shared the footage with my endocrinologist and my lawyer. Yes, I'd hired a lawyer. Attempted murder is what this was, whether Patricia wanted to admit it or not. The trap was set. Now I needed the perfect stage. Patricia's 60th birthday party was the event of the year. 50 relatives gathered at Mark's aunt's house, all there to celebrate the family matriarch. Patricia had been building to this for weeks, telling everyone how concerned she was about my attention-seeking behavior with my diabetes. She started her performance the moment we arrived. Oh, dear, you look pale. Maybe you should check your sugar right now, in front of everyone. You know, if you have nothing to hide. The relatives watched with interest. Patricia had done her work well. I could see the suspicion in their eyes. I made a show of reluctance, then tested my blood sugar publicly. Normal reading. Patricia pounced. How interesting. Suddenly you're fine at a family event. It's almost like your diabetes only acts up when you want sympathy. I played my part perfectly, defensive, flustered, insisting my condition was real while Patricia calmly, rationally, painted me as a hysteric. She was building to her crescendo. I could feel it. I've been diabetic for 8 years, she announced to the room. And I've never needed the constant attention, the endless drama. Real diabetics just manage quietly. That's when I collapsed. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. Full diabetic emergency, shaking, sweating, the works. Mark rushed to my side as relatives panicked. Patricia, triumphant, stood over me. She's faking, she announced loudly. I know because I swapped her insulin with water 2 weeks ago. She's been injecting nothing but water. A real diabetic would be dead by now. The room went silent. Patricia, drunk on her victory, continued. I did it to prove she's been lying. All those hospital visits, all that medication, it's all fake. I've been switching her supplies for months to expose her. Mark looked at his mother in horror. You switched her insulin with water? To prove a point. Patricia insisted. She's fine, see? She's faking right now. That's when I sat up, perfectly healthy, and pulled out my phone. Actually, Patricia, I said clearly, you've been switching saline for saline. I haven't used any of the vials you tampered with in months. But thank you for confessing in front of 50 witnesses. I hit play on my phone, and Patricia's voice filled the room from the hidden camera footage. Let's see how long she keeps up this act when her insulin doesn't work. The relatives gasped as they watched her carefully switching vials, crushing pills into my food, hiding my glucose tablets. The most damning clip was from my hospital visit, where she whispered to my unconscious form, "This is what happens when you try to upstage me." I've been working with the police, I continued, pulling out the folder I'd hidden in my purse. Attempted murder, assault, theft of medication, fraud. Did you know tampering with someone's prescription medication is a federal crime? Patricia's face went through a journey, shock, rage, then fear as 2 police officers entered the room. I'd coordinated with them beforehand. They'd been waiting outside. Patricia Morrison, one officer said, "You're under arrest for attempted murder and aggravated assault." As they led her away, she kept screaming that I was faking, that this was all part of my act. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She was finally the center of attention, the star of the show, but not in the way she'd wanted. Mark filed for divorce for me 3 months later. He couldn't forgive me for entrapping his mother, even though she'd literally tried to kill me. I didn't fight it. How could I stay married to someone who'd rather see me dead than believe I was sick? Patricia took a plea deal. 5 years for aggravated assault, 3 suspended. She has to attend therapy and isn't allowed within 500 feet of me. I heard through the grapevine that she tells everyone in prison she's diabetic now, fighting for extra medical attention and special meals. Old habits die hard, I guess. As for me, I moved across the country, started fresh. I found a new endocrinologist who couldn't believe what I'd been through, a therapist who specialized in medical trauma, and eventually a partner who keeps glucose tablets in every room of our house, just in case. I still have Patricia's mugshot saved on my phone. Sometimes, when I'm having a bad diabetes day and feeling sorry for myself, I look at it and remember, I survived her. I survived someone who literally tried to kill me to win an imaginary competition. If that's not worth a gold medal, I don't know what is. But unlike Patricia, I don't need an audience to validate my suffering. My survival is victory enough. And that's the difference between us. She needed to win the suffering Olympics so badly, she was willing to kill for it. Me? I just needed to stay alive. And I did. Gold medal or not, I won the only competition that mattered.